Hello there. Excuse me. To all of my friends and family, those who are on Facebook and also on YouTube, I'm going to upload this video there. The word came to me this morning speaking about grace, G-R-A-C-E. I'm reminded of the Apostle Paul in the 12th chapter, I believe, of 2 Corinthians, when he talked about that he was caught up into the third heaven, whether in the body or out of the body. I can't really tell you about that. That's what he's saying. I don't know. I don't know whether I was in the body, out of the body. And if you've ever had the experience of having a spiritual encounter with God, sometimes he will take you out of your body, and then you'll find yourself going certain places in the heavenlies and seeing certain things that he will allow you to see, and only you, because of your relationship with God. I've had that experience of coming out of my body, whether through a vision or a dream, and the Lord was with me to keep me while out of the body and showed me certain different things. So Paul similarly had this experience that he was caught up, whether in the body or out of the body, I just don't know. But when I got to the third heaven, I began to hear certain words that was being spoken that was unlawful for a man to utter. What kind of words? And I hope I said that was unlawful. These words were unlawful to utter in this realm. Only those kind of words could have been spoken in the spiritual realm. So there are some things we don't have privy to, and some things are off limits to us, even with the deep mysteries of God that he holds confidentially just for some. And Paul said, I heard words that was being spoken by those in heaven, whether in the heavenly host, the Holy Trinity, the archangels, or whoever it might have been. They were having a discussion concerning certain things of the Spirit, and he was able to hear things that was unlawful for a man to even speak in this realm. And Paul said, I will come to visions and revelations of the Lord. That's just part of what he's called me to do. I'll come to that. He will show me things. He will take me on trips and take me back in time and all of that. He said, because of this, even those mysteries of his word, Paul mentioned in essence that God would share those with him. And because of that, there was a thorn. You know what a thorn is, just like a rose. You've got the pretty rose at the top, but if you move down too fast on that stem, you're going to get stuck by a thorn. And those thorns are sharp objects that stick out, and if you happen to hit one the wrong way, it will puncture your finger and it hurts. Although the rose is beautiful, but it comes with thorns. I hear you, Lord. And also, this life of salvation is beautiful It's lovely, but at times it comes with thorns. I wonder, do you hear where I'm going with this? You have your good days, your bad days, you have your peaks, you have your valleys, and sometimes God will send you through a period of thorny activity, of sickness, emotionally disturbed, heartbreak, heartache, or whatever it might be. Those thorns are placed on that beautiful rose for a certain reason. And many times there are thorns placed in our flesh to remind us that regardless of how beautiful the salvational process, how beautiful God is, He always has a reminder to let you know your limitations and your boundaries of how far to go. And not to get overly exalted on the beauty. So Paul said that because of the revelations that I have received, God purposefully put a thorn in his flesh, and every now and then, nobody really knows, scholars have talked about it, could be this, could be that, but it did not say in the scriptures. All we can do is cautiously speculate. But nobody knows. But I wonder, do you know what your thorn is? I know what mine is. That because of the abundance of things that God shows me, there's a certain thorn that always keeps me regular. I remember back in the day when we had the Buick Roadmasters, we had the Cadillacs and big cars. They couldn't take regular gas. They had to take what we called back then ethyl. They call it premium today, but back then it was ethyl. And it only cost 25 cents a gallon. And look at the raise in the prices. But that thorn that God put in Paul's flesh was to always keep him regular and relevant, that it wasn't about him. It was about him just being used as a channel of revelation and blessing in order to lead and guide, bring deliverance, and give his people the necessary information to overcome whatever they were going through, because whether you realize it, you didn't come here to stay. I made a statement the other day, and I'm feeling pretty good today. I could go on, but I just don't have time for all these sidebars. You know, from the womb, you started this journey, and you were headed to the tomb. So is what's important is what happens between the womb and the tomb. It's a journey. I call mine a tour. Because sometimes the destination is not necessarily at the next stop. You know, tours travel from city to city, country to country, until that particular tour is over. I've had experience of tours. But anyway, the bottom line is, wherever you are today, just remember that regardless of how God blesses you, He will put a thorn in your flesh, regardless of what it might be, just to let you know that you ain't about nothing. You're just flesh and blood, and all of our righteousness is just as filthy rags. That's over in Isaiah. And I was just thinking about that as God brought me that word concerning grace. And so Paul sought the Lord 3 times about removing that thorn from his flesh. He prayed. And I believe Paul could really lay a prayer down. And I don't think he was like some of these deacons that get down on their knees and talk about, we come before you bowed down as an empty bucket, empty vessel before a flowing fountain, and all of these preludes and all of this. Paul really had a relationship with God, and you can just talk to him. Say, listen, God, take this thorn away from me. And why did he want him to do it? It doesn't really say. But I know that when my thorn kicks in, it seems like it does not let me operate at my maximum ability in the anointing, although the thorn really has nothing to do with the anointing, but it has more to do with your attitude and the way you view God. Okay. That's all he wants to do, is just keep you regular, keep you humble, regardless if he blesses you, if you're eating rice and beans, cabbage, you're living in the lower echelon, the middle class, upper class, the upper. You've got to keep that head right and keep it balanced, that you will always have that touch and your heart will stay clean and pure before God. And as Paul began to pray, and this is all I'm going to leave with you today. There's so much I can go on to say about this. After praying 3 times, the Lord spoke to Paul and said, listen here, Paul, my grace, hear me good now. I'm getting some distraction. He said, my grace is sufficient for thee. His grace is sufficient. Even with the thorn, you can still go forward, even though you're hurting. I remember the late, great Bishop J.O. Patterson suffered with his ailment in his knees, gout. And sometimes Bishop Patterson wouldn't always feel that well before he preached, but it's something about once he got up to preach, and he had a slow, dry style. I mean, he would just get up and just talk and this, that, and the other, and just talk to the people, where most preachers try to get up and be excited and all out the box. He would just be right where he was. If he wasn't feeling good, I'm just not feeling good. And he said, Lord, help me to feel better. And before you know it, the anointing of God would kick in, and the next thing you know, the anointing of God is stirring in the house. When the late great Bishop J.O. Patterson Sr. would go forward. So that thorn really has nothing to do with your anointing. It has more or less to do with keeping you dependent upon God. Grace, God's grace, his grace is sufficient for thee. So remember, whatever it is you're going through, and you're going to always go through something, just like the seasons change. You're going to have summer, winter, spring, and fall. And you learn how to dress for those seasons. Spiritually, we grow from grace to grace, from faith to faith. We have what the Lord was dealing with me concerning the word transitions. We're always transitioning. We're never standing still. That's if you're on a journey or a tour. You've got to keep moving to the next venue or the next assignment in order to serve, regardless of how you're feeling.